Welcome back. This is Hope at Dawn. Pretty much excited. And as I promised you, we have an amazing guest with us in studio. Today, we have Favour Muturi, who will be sharing us her story of how she took it a day at a time. And even in looking at pain from a whole different perspective, that pain can truly be turned into purpose. You can send in your feedback at 0708 222 323. Let us know where you're tuned in from. If maybe you have any questions, you can also send them our way. So, welcome Favour. Habari yako?
Nzuri sana, asante nashukuru.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, tell us, who is Favour? Who is Favour Muturi?
So my ID names are Maureen Muturi. Favour is my God-given name, which I now run with. Personally, I'm a writer, I'm an author. I love writing, I love journaling, I love singing, but for the audience of one, and dancing for the audience of one.
I can relate.
If inspiration strikes at 2 a.m., that's where I'm going to dance. Professionally,
Yes.
I'm a certified transformational life and purpose coach. And as I mentioned, a published author and an inspirational speaker, among others.
Wow. And you earlier on shared with me your story of, the diagnosis of fibromyalgia. And maybe you can open our eyes to understanding. Is this something that Kenyans know about? And how did you even get a diagnosis?
Okay, I would say that many people would say it is rare, but I feel it's not rare, it just goes undiagnosed.
Right.
Fibromyalgia hides itself very subtly. You can't find it in blood tests, you can't find it in CT scans, and you can't find it on MRIs. So if you do all those tests, the test will tell you you're normal, but you're in excruciating pain.
Yeah.
So the only way to diagnose is using something called tender points. There are 18 tender points in the body, which means when I press you, you have extreme points. You have extreme pain on those points. If you have at least 11 out of 18 points that are painful, you most likely have fibromyalgia. Mine were 14.
Wow.
So if you join that, it's not the only test, but if you join that with a disturbance in sleep, with generalized pain everywhere, it's not localized to a specific joint.
Okay.
If you are having problems with mood and cognitive issues, then you most likely have fibromyalgia. So Kenyan doctors could not figure it out when I was here. So I was diagnosed in India.
And how was it for you just realizing what is really going on?
Let me tell you, I'll be very honest. The first time I was told, you have this condition, it's called fibromyalgia, I was so relieved. I was relieved because the past 6 months, I sat and listened to doctors telling me what I have is an emotional issue.
Wow.
Others told me it's in your head. Others would think I don't want to go to school, so I'm skiving classes. So it validated me, made me feel I'm not crazy. I was actually undergoing real pain, not the one they say was imagined. So my first response, I was very relieved. It has a name.
I mean, I can only imagine when people just think you're making something up and it's actually them not realizing that you have something that's going on in your body. That must have been very, very difficult. And maybe even after receiving this news, how did the treatment look like? Was it intense? How was it?
So the treatment was having the right medication, because that's very important.
Yeah.
If you don't have the right diagnosis, you want to be put on the right medication. So the medication I was put on that night, I slept well, and I hadn't slept well for 6 months. So there was medication, there was physiotherapy, because my knee used to dislocate in and out.
Yeah.
And I needed, by the time I was going to India, it had dislocated about 5 times.
Oh.
So I needed to do exercises. I also had supplements. And then the lifestyle, coping with stress, because stress is a huge trigger.
Yeah.
And so my life had to turn around. Yeah.
And what would you say are the challenges you went through and maybe even still go through after that diagnosis?
Yes, I was relieved at first that it has a name.
Yeah.
But later, the doctor sat us down and told us it does not have a cause, it does not have a cure. What he was trying to say is that it is chronic and you might battle with it for the rest of your life. I would have been discouraged, but once he said that, there was an inner conviction in me. And in me, I just said, but I don't belong to this kingdom. In the kingdom I belong to, things can change.
Yeah.
I can be healed. So that didn't really make me feel that. But the challenges were immense.
Yeah.
The most affected for me were my muscles and my legs, to be specific. That means I couldn't stand, I couldn't walk or sit for long. So if I'm having a meeting that's a bit like longer than 2 hours, I have a routine where I have to sit for 2 hours and then I stand up, I walk around, I go back to my seat. After 30 minutes, my back is like, no, we need another break. I go around. The worst has been when I would get muscle spasms in my legs. And I describe spasms as electric shock-like pain. And then it would come like waves. You know how you can wash clothes or wash anything, or wash your hands, and then you go to switch on a light. That electric shock you'd get, that's what I would get. But continuously, it waves. And that has had me being in hospital for so many times. And that means that I needed to use a wheelchair. From the bedroom I was sleeping in, because I had to give up mine. My bedroom was upstairs. I had to move into the guest bedroom because I couldn't reach my room.
Yeah.
So from the guest room to the car, when I'm going to hospital, we had to use a wheelchair. At my worst, I had to use a wheelchair from one room to another. Like, for example, if I had guests in the sitting room and I'm in my bedroom, they obviously can't come see me in the bedroom. So I had to be wheeled to the sitting room. That's like 10 steps, to be honest. So challenges have been mostly with my legs and migraines. A migraine is not just a typical headache. Comes with nausea, comes with photosensitivity, like these lights, like flashes. I don't like people having photos and then if they want to take photos, they use flash. It just do it without, you know. So those are just few examples, but there are more, and there are things I've had to manage along the way. Some have improved, some cropped up later, but we are managing.
Yeah. God is on the throne, and
By the grace of God.
Yeah, you mentioned that we belong to a different kingdom because the doctors may say one thing, but then there's what God says in His Word as well. And you also mentioned that you had to deal with also 6 more chronic diagnoses. Maybe tell us about that.
So the thing about chronic illnesses, mostly autoimmune. Autoimmune means that your immune system is fighting against your own body's cells. Instead of identifying, we are one. Harmony, there's no harmony. So the immune system views our cells as foreign and therefore attacks. When you have one of those, it drags drags others along. Like, it's very rare for it to occur as just one. So in that whole, I got chronic migraines in 2016. I mean, that's when it was diagnosed. In 2017, I was diagnosed with endometriosis and had to undergo emergency surgery to just clean up, and because I was in extreme abdominal pain. Around 2019, I was told I have a condition that has a very long name. But you could go and research. It's called hypermobility, EDS, in short, because the name is so long. And 2020, I developed something we call TMJ syndrome. See, this is your temporomandibular joint. So sometimes it locks and you can't chew, you can't talk. So it started doing that in 2020. Remember, I didn't start with these symptoms in 2012.
Yeah.
They just cropped up, Then I developed another one called trigeminal. There's a nerve that passes over here. So if it gets irritated or inflamed, that made me not be able to speak for 4 months.
What? 4 months, that's a long time.
Very. But with it, I've just realized that I don't deal with all of them at the same time.
Right.
So I deal with what has come.
Yeah.
I usually tell God to give me grace to just deal with one thing that comes. What destabilizes me is when I'm dealing with 2 or 3 conditions at the same time.
Yeah.
I barely catch my breath.
Yeah. And during this period, did you receive any kind of support?
Yes, I have a rock solid support. I mean, when God was dishing out people for support, for me, it's overwhelming. My parents have held me. They have upheld me. They didn't believe those narratives they were being told. They kept looking for answers until we got answers. They provide everything. My medical bills, my food, which is special. There's nothing that they have not gone, they've gone to extraordinary. I mean, I can't explain their support because that's made the difference.
Yeah.
In fibromyalgia, we say if you have support, 50% of it is covered.
Wow.
So I still live with them and they take care of everything. My 2 sisters also, they are in that mix. And then there are those who God ordained to be friends, but now they've become family. So I have had the hugest support ever, and that's one of the reasons that has made me be who I am.
Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful to know. I think it's say that God gives you grace for your place. So for whatever you could be going through, God just gives you sufficient grace, and His grace is always sufficient. I'm so glad to hear that, you've had the support, because all this can be really stressful, like it's one thing after the other. And maybe talk about, how would you say you've taken it a day at a time? How was it? How was waking up each day with these conditions? How was it taking it a day at a time? What kept you going?
So at first, I did not absolutely get the principle of a day at a time.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to conquer everything in one day. Like, I don't want these things to show up, and therefore I want to take them all on one day.
Yes.
Until I burnt out, until I couldn't do that anymore, until I just realized, for me, it reached the point where I had to do an hour after an hour after an hour. A day seemed too long, because there are days when I'm in excruciating pain.
Yeah.
I can't sleep because sleep would really help. It's a nice escape, because when I'm sleeping, I'm not in any pain, or I'm not aware of the pain I'm in. So until one time, I was seeing my counselor, and she told me, you need to take it a day at a time. That means that if on this day you wake up and you can't do anything, you embrace yourself and you stay in bed and do what you need to do. That's the day. We coined it a term called human days. I was struggling because when I have energy, Beatrice, oh gosh, there's nothing I don't do.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring that into dealing with illnesses. I can't.
Yes.
So I was falling, Then, my counselor was like, you can't do that. So you need grace for human days. So she told me, if a day is too long, just do it an hour at a time. And the more the hours went, the more I finished the day. I'm like, okay, tomorrow it's a brand new day. There's a chance for me to do something I didn't do yesterday. So, and then when I wake up and find I have energy, there's nothing I wouldn't do. Nothing.
Yeah.
But it really helped me to not live in the past, think about the opportunities I've lost, and not fear of the future, because I create my future right now.
Yeah.
So I decided to create my future and take it the way the day has come. Work with the way the day has come. Otherwise, if I want to just go ahead and think about the things I'm not doing, they would drain me. They would make me go into depression because I want to be active and I couldn't.
Yeah.
When I started taking it a day at a time, I saw a difference. I would take the day as it has come.
Yeah.
If I cannot work that day, I will not work. And then I would give myself so much grace and tell myself, if I had the energy, I'd have gone past what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And therefore, I'm not lazy. I just need this time for rest. And that helped.
Wow, that's beautiful, because even with our everyday lives, sometimes even when we are not unwell, our bodies can just refuse. And most of the time, we don't give ourselves enough grace.
True.
But maybe you can talk about at what point did you decide to even seek counseling, and how did that change your perspective, even with the healing journey?
What made me seek counseling was self-awareness.
Okay.
I've always been very self-aware. So when I start seeing that my patterns of thought are leaning toward the dark, that's when I would literally call out and text my counselor, I need a session. Can you book me in this week?
Wow.
And I decided it's not a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
It's a sign of strength.
Actually, it is.
So she would cancel me until I've gotten back my sanity. And then she would tell me, if you need a session, I just need you to WhatsApp me and we're going to set it up.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to do. So when I realized I've started having depressive thoughts or suicidal thoughts, I knew in all my knowing, I cannot do this on my, I need a professional. And so I would seek counseling, and it has changed me completely, because I still remember lessons I learned while in counseling. And those are the things I used as my building blocks.
Yeah.
So when I'm faced with a situation, I remember, but my counselor told me this, so maybe let me try it out. And it works.
Yeah. Wow. And maybe while even we're at that, maybe you can talk about the importance of your relationship with God, like how that played out in this whole thing.
I keep telling people the Lord is very strategic. He saved me in Form 2, Form 1, before I got sick in Form 3. If he had not, there is absolutely no way I could have made it out.
Yeah.
Because there are times I would literally come to the brink of death. And the only thing that could bring me back to life was God. My support system love me, I love them back, but they were not enough. When you reach a certain place, only the one who is in you and above you, that's the person that can bring you back.
That's true.
So my relationship with God has been the most thing that has made me make it out.
Yeah.
Even times when I would feel, God, I'm done with this life, I need you to take me. I have had those conversations with him. How about we do this? I don't wake up tomorrow. Let's just, I don't wake up tomorrow. And then in the morning, I find myself awake and I'm so mad at God. I thought we agreed. And he would take me like a father would and show me that my life isn't over. In fact, he showed me that my life hasn't even begun with the things he wants to do with me. And therefore, this would be very premature. So what he'd do is now he'd send encouragement in different things. That's the day someone who has not called you in 2 years calls you. That's the day I find some random text encouraging me. That's the day when someone who, I don't know, God sends people to communicate a message to me, and then I look up, I'm like, okay, fine. Maybe you can continue this thing called life.
Wow, I like that. And I think it reminds me of how God can meet us at our place, like exactly where we are.
Yeah.
Because most people maybe even would feel condemned, like, I did this. God, I don't know if you can really get down to my level, but God does. He meets you. He meets you exactly where you are. That's very beautiful. And maybe someone is watching us and they're probably at the brink of even death, or just feeling very frustrated. Looking at your story and looking at how you were able to take a day at a time, what would you tell them?
First, I tell them that God loves them so immensely. There's a time that God showed me that even in darkness, He's always there.
Yeah.
Like if you had a friend and then the lights went out, you are still seated next to the person. It's just that you can't see him. It's just that you can't see them,
yeah.
you know. So he showed me, I've always been there. I'm next to you.
Yeah.
And in this case, I'd tell them to stop struggling, and instead of struggling and resisting, to surrender to God. My heart started healing when I surrendered to God. I told him, okay, this is the place that you have decided for me to be in for this season. I know it's going to change.
Yeah.
Before it changes, I give you control. Whatever you want to do with these lessons, with these teachings that you are giving me, then I'm yielded to you. And then one day he just told me, I work best with yielded vessels.
Wow.
So stop struggling, surrender to God, and let him guide you, because struggling without God is, you struggle even when you're with God sometimes. So now when you're struggling, when God is not in the picture, you've added another misery to yourself. So I'd really tell them to, surrender to God. Number two, I'd ask them to work with what you've got. There are things you don't have, I agree. But what do you have? Just like God asked Moses, what's in your hand? Are you making use of what's in your hand? What's in your mind? What's in your head? The knowledge you have acquired. Sometimes it's right there staring at us. It's just that we've lacked perspective. And I remember this illustration that my counselor gave me. Sometimes I used to want to pretend I'm not going through health challenges and wanted to take on the world. And I had to understand that I have limits. Then she told me, I want you to imagine that there's a big elephant in the room. Can you ignore the elephant? It's so big. You can't ignore the elephant.
Yeah.
So how about you sit down and you decide, I'm going to work with what I've got. And that helped me out of the magic clay. I'm like, this is what I've got. This is what I can do right now. So I'm going to do what I can, as I trust God to do what I can't.
Yeah. And what would you say is the importance of not being in denial?
You cannot fix a problem you don't know you have, and you cannot seek help for something you pretend you are not in.
Wow.
You just can't. It's like going to the doctor. When you go to the doctor and then you just keep silent, will the doctor know what's wrong with you? No. But it's the moment you have felt, oh, I have a headache, I think I have an abdominal ache, that drives you to go to the doctor. So what denial does is that it robs you of the opportunity to get help. Because you're just saying, no, but I'm fine. You're not fine. The symptoms show it, you're not fine. So if you would accept, it's an acknowledgement. It's not that you're running away. It's not that you're accepting what happened. You are acknowledging that I need help. So if you reach that point where you say, I need help, that's the beginning of your healing. You become aware, I actually need this. And then you start your journey to healing. Yeah.
Wow, that's really good, because I think most people are usually in denial and they feel that it's better to ignore than to go like after this and actually seek help. So I really do hope that people get that, because it's so important not to be in denial.
Let me give you an illustration. I used to do this when emotional things used to come my way.
Yeah.
I would put them in a proverbial shelf in my mind. I don't have the bandwidth for you right now, I'll put it in a shelf. Another one comes, I put them in the shelf. So you know how I did that continuously until I tripped over the rug, because I was putting things under the rug, and then they became a mountain.
Yeah.
And then I tripped over the mountain. And then now I had to deal with all those things at the same time.
At once. Oof.
It was
powerful.
hard.
Yeah.
So now instead of sweeping things under the rug and then they pile up, I'm like, I can just pause in my day and say, this has come up, how do I feel about it? What can I do about it? Whom can I ask help from, and that was a valid lesson. I no longer put things under the rug because the tripping was so painful.
That's a good illustration.
It was so painful.
Wow, that's a beautiful illustration because when you use word pictures, it just changes something because now you realize, and it's so true. When you trip over, now you have to deal with everything at
All of
once.
them.
That's a beautiful illustration. And I know that even people watching have gotten something. I see we have about 2 minutes to the 8:30, 2 minutes to 8:30. And maybe before we cross over, because when we come back, we'll be talking about your books. But maybe as we wind up this very fast part of the interview, how would you say pain birthed purpose in your life?
So in one of the books which I'm going to get to, I say it's called Refining, Defining Fire. So here's the thing. We all go through fires.
Yeah.
But it's upon us to choose what the fire will do. It can either burn you or it can mold you. It can refine you. Your purities can just drop. And then by the time God is done with you, you are a sparkling diamond. So I chose my fire, which was my health, for God to refine my character enough for me to be able to give back. So what he did is he now birthed a burden in me to be able to reach out to the people who have now undergone pain, chronic pain, depression, helplessness, hopelessness, stagnation, frustration. I mean, what he did was expose me to these things so that when someone else comes to me with one of those problems, I'm not giving them blanket knowledge. I know, I've been there. I know what you feel. So it birthed my purpose, which is to awake destinies, to unlock destinies, and to birth destinies.
Wow. That's literally, I think, the most beautiful perspective I've ever had, because when we talk about affliction, nobody wants that, but looking at the other side of it, like, yo, this could actually birth something bigger than myself. And the God who created you knew you even before you were formed in your mother's womb. And God knew. God is not shocked by the diagnosis. He knew all about it. He equipped everyone who needs to be in your life during that season. And he knew he himself would take you out. Because God doesn't give you something that he cannot take you out of. So this is such a beautiful story. I'm learning so much. I even wish I had a notebook, but I'm just depositing that. I'm putting them in a shelf. Just not the under the rug shelf. A good shelf where I can take out, and when I stumble, that's a lot of knowledge I'm going to be falling into.
You have been granted permission.
Oh, thank you. Wow, this is so heartwarming. I'm learning quite a lot. And I believe that even those watching us this day are learning a thing or two about taking it a day at a time, no matter what you could be going through. I personally feel like sometimes we can literally go over anything, especially sometimes when it's emotional and it's something we can work on. But when it's health, when it's something that's related to your body, that makes it even more difficult, because sometimes your will can't put you out there. You want to, but then you're stopped by your own body. So this is really important, because we've literally gotten to the worst of it, where your own body cannot work for you. So we'll be taking a very short break, but when we come back, we'll be talking about the purpose. We've talked about the pain, but let's look at the purpose more deeply. See you shortly.
So this parent calls me, sits after service and says, "Young man, you do not know what you've done," because tells me that my son comes and tells me that, "Dad, I have also been struggling with ABCD. His was a mix of alcohol and pornography." And just hearing Justo on Route 104, a fellow young person like me, give his testimony on how God has moved in his life. And I requested to meet the young man, and we met over coffee, became good friends. And I told him as well, listen, by me sharing does not mean because the devil puts banana peels all over. Now, scripture tells us that, no weapon fashioned against you shall prosper. It doesn't say that weapons will not be fashioned. No, it says no weapon. It means weapons will be fashioned. And he will put traps all over. Right from your phone. You open Instagram, you see an image. And all of a sudden, it plays back. All those things. So that's another, because the battle is in the mind. That is why Paul says in Romans 12:1, not be conformed by the patterns of the world, but rather be transformed by the renewing of the mind. He knows it's here. The devil knows. And this guy is millions of years old. He's not our age mate. For those who remember when I used to tell us that, he's not your age mate. Stop saying that, me, I know that you have been saved for 15 years. Dude, the devil has been in existence for millions of years. So guess what? He knows everything about you. Okay? But greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. We walked together, and I'm happy to say that he found his deliverance, and he became also a peer champion, as it is, an educator. And for me, those are some of the things that, wow, without Hope FM, really the platform of Hope FM, and as Reverend Tomboy used to tell us as well, this is a platform not for you, but God is using you. The initiative Friends of Hope is more or less like what Romans 10:17 says, that faith comes only by the hearing, and hearing through the word of God. But how will they hear if somebody does not go to tell them? Think about that Muslim brother or sister who, because of you being a friend of hope and supporting with your 100 bob or whatever it is, that in Friday evening, by chance, they listen to Yesu Ndiye Njia. And then because of you supporting and being a friend of hope, the message will reach them in Zanzibar, in Mombasa, in whatever it is. Mimi ni Rafiki Mso. I'm a friend of hope. I'm just as one.
Je, ushawahi kuweka jambo kwenye mizani? Ushawahi kupata uzito wake? Haya basi, usitapetape zaidi. Naomba unigande, maana mizani ipo hapa kwa ajili yako.
Vyakula na mbegu za kitamaduni,
na kutuliza fikra na kukuwezesha kupima masuala ibuka katika jamii, tena kwa busara. Tukutane mizani kila Ijumaa saa 1 machweo kwenye runinga ya Hope TV.
Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content, of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries, with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station, with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live.
This is Hope at Dawn, and we are definitely getting a lot of hope this morning. We have Favour with us with such a beautiful story. The first segment of this interview was just so deep, and it was just full of her story and how she was able to get above everything that the devil actually threw at her. And sometimes I tend to see it as God allowing these things so that we can learn something from it, and so that purpose will be birthed, because God knew all about it. We were just saying off air that God was not shocked by the diagnosis. God knew, and he knew exactly what he was creating. And sometimes there's this thing that TD Jake says, that you don't know what God is making when you're aching. And I think today I've gotten to see the reality of that statement. And I see an amazing comment coming in from a lady called Mihaki Karumba. I don't know if that rings a bell.
Yes.
She says it's true that when she has energy, there's nothing she can't do. She was our class monitor, and she's a brilliant leader. May healing be your portion. Oh, this is such a beautiful comment. Oh,
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I know it's you.
okay. And as promised, when we were just taking a break, we told our viewers that we'll be now talking about the purpose. We'll be talking about the books that were birthed from this. So talk about how you even began to write. What was that prompting in your heart that led you towards that direction?
So, first, I will tell you that I had a writer's block
Yeah.
for about 5 years. The one people have for 6 months, mine was for 5 years.
Yeah.
But I couldn't even write a Facebook post because my creativity was just shut up.
Yeah.
And it was because of the medications I was taking, because of fibromyalgia. It affects cognitive abilities as well.
Okay.
So I wasn't being able to write anything. And then I had been going back and forth to London for migraine treatments. So on this particular day, I am on the plane and I feel something starting to bubble out inside of me. So I just took my phone, started typing. I typed until I finished. My writing is very different. My writing process is very different because it's God inspired. There's nothing I write that He has not ordained for me to write. So when I get back home, I'm like, this looks like a nice article. Like weeks later, He gives me another one, and then when I reached the fourth one, that's when he mentioned, you do realize this can be a book. I was like, okay, I'd not seen it that way, but okay, if it's time to write the book, it's time to write the book. So the weeks that followed, that was August 2019. So the weeks that followed, he would give me inspiration. I would feel the words starting to bubble inside of me and they need expression. So I start writing. Trust you me, the inspiration could come at anywhere, at any time. Once I was in an SGR, headed to Coast.
Yeah.
The other time is at 2 a.m. He wakes me up at 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. to write. And trust you me, I will have to wake up because if I go back to sleep, I won't remember what he wanted to say. And it's so important. So that's how he did it. Just random places, random times. But I wrote the articles independent and then later I combined them into a book. So that's how I had my first book, Defining Fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what does that title mean? What does it entail?
So he picked it, obviously. God picked it because
Yeah.
I told God to pick everything about my book. The words, the publisher, the cover design, the whatever. There's nothing here that's Maureen. It's only my name there, at the bottom.
Yeah.
But it was all him. So when he gave me that title, I could see what he's saying. So let me show the viewers. So you see this fire, and that's going this way. At the center, the heat it's hottest at the core.
Yeah.
And then now the heat has expression. So even choosing this, he was telling me that I can be, whatever that I've gone through has been firing up my core. And even then I was not burnt. He reminded me of that verse where I will be with you in the waters, they will not drown you. You will walk in the flames, shall not even scorch you. So defining fire meant that I allowed God for the fire that He had taken me through to refine me.
Yeah.
And once it did, the fire defined me. It redefined me. The person I was when I was finishing, high school, or the trajectory I was going, He had to look for a detour because I was going a very dark path. I keep thinking about that. So he now defined me based on the experiences he was giving me. Yeah.
Wow. And if someone were to read Refining, Defining Fire, what's the one thing you would want them to take from it?
I would want them to understand that no matter what is in your life,
Yeah.
the purposes of God over your life shall stand. They'll stand. What he told me is whatever happens in between is inconsequential. It does not put a dent on God's plan for me.
Yeah.
Things will happen, yes, it will look like things are derailed and all that. His plan is still working.
Yeah.
And it's a chance for them to find hope in the uncertainty of life, to see light in the darkness,
Yeah.
to be able to see opportunities in obstacles, because that's what I did. I just saw opportunities. I saw an obstacle and I was like, what opportunity is this presenting to me? And that's what I would want them to take away from the first book. My life defies logic. Even me being here is my life defying logic. Because if you think about the things I've shared, and then you see me and hear about the things I'm doing, they don't make sense. They're not. I would be bedridden for I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
So it's also a chance for them to see that their life can defy logic as well. Yeah.
Wow. That's really beautiful, because I'm even thinking of, this verse that says about gold has to be refined by fire and our faith is more precious than gold. So the fire that God will take us through is literally more intense than even the gold fire. And also the book of Isaiah says that as gold is refined by fire, we are refined by affliction. So sometimes the pain, the things we go through that we do not like, those are the very things that birth what is needed.
Yes.
And I'd have to ask this question. Do you think life would have turned out the way it has right now were it not for the challenges that you went through?
No. In fact, I would not know God
Yeah.
the way I know him now. Because my relationship with God has been cemented and fortified
Yeah.
in the valley. How he would wake me up random times of the night just to spend time with him. I used to look forward to them. In fact, I used to make sure I'm asleep at 10 p.m. And then I tell him, please wake me up. Like, I just wanted. And then the whole house is quiet. No one is awake. So I would wake up, spend time with him, read the word, pray, worship. And then he'd send me back to sleep until I wake up till morning. I cherish such moments. They are so beautiful. Sometimes he'd speak directly to my heart. The voice of the Holy Spirit is always constant with me.
Yeah.
And it has been challenged. I have grown because of these experiences.
Yeah.
So I tend to feel, yes, the experiences were very, horrendous, for lack of a better word. But in terms of the glory, as it says in Romans, that the affliction, the light, and it says the light affliction that we're going through right now is not compared to the glory that will be in us, for us, and through us. I used to struggle with that verse because it said light affliction. I was wondering, do you understand if this is this is not a light affliction?
Yeah.
But yes, God saw me through the valley.
Yes.
And I don't think my life would be the same. Yeah.
Yeah, because that reminds me, my mom mentioned losing her mother when she was very young, at around 15 years, around thereabout. And when she went to see her counselor, because after a long time, she realized that she had not fully healed. And when she went to see her counselor, the counselor asked her that same question: do you think your life would have turned out the way it has now, were it not for your mother's death? And my mom was like, no. The fact that I lost my mom made me go harder for whatever I wanted. She became the first to graduate in her whole family, even as the last born. And, she went to the best school there was in that area. This is after repeating primary school. So when you think about it, sometimes when God sends these challenges, we tend to be like, no, God, I don't want this. Take this away. But the whole time, God knows exactly what he's doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And maybe let's talk about your career even as a life coach. How did that, gel in as well?
So it's a very interesting story because
Yeah.
what happened is when you realize your why,
Yeah.
your big why is your purpose. Why are you here on earth? I'm very big on helping individuals find their purpose.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you are misaligned with why you're here on earth. So when I got to understand my why, now God started giving me channels of expression in order for me to fulfill my purpose. So being a life coach, being a purpose coach came in as one of the vehicles. And I did not know anything about coaching before I started. Like 2 months before I started, I didn't know what coaching was. He's the one who placed it in my spirit.
Yeah.
Can you inquire about coaching? Like, I don't even know what that is. That's why I'm telling you to inquire.
Yeah.
So, there's those conversations I have with God, and it's like he dropped something in my spirit.
Yeah.
And that was one of those things. And by the time I was inquiring and attended the first class, I'm like, this is what I have been waiting for. It felt right. It felt this is a destiny moment, and this is how God wants me to help. This is the vehicle that he wants me to help people. And I was so jazzed about it. I mean, I love coaching because, one, you get to have a mindset that has been refined.
Yeah.
That's why it's important when the Bible says, renew your mind with the word, because you cannot fit new wine in old wineskin.
That's true.
So if you're having a transformation in your life, but your mindset is not aligned with what you're doing, you're gonna you've set yourself up for failure. So he called me, and now I started looking for courses and programs that are doing it. I did the first program. I did another program for 1 full year. I went out.
Wow.
Because it felt right. Even now, like when I'm talking about coaching, I have another passion. People tell me, hey, because it's so in me.
Yeah.
So I get to help people boost their confidence, reignite their passion, to be able to just change their mindset. And I'm telling you, after you've changed your mindset, there are things you'll do that you'll be unstoppable.
That's true. Wow.
So it was his inspiration. It was his idea.
And you it's from him when he just gives you that sense of satisfaction, like, yes, this is what I was made to do.
Yes.
I feel that way about presenting. But anyway, as you were talking, I am, thinking about just how you were just literally the best candidate to go for this line, because God literally took you through that fire, so that even when someone comes and they're explaining whatever they're going through and feeling like they can't get on the other side, you're like, chill, because I have proof.
Yeah.
Look at me. I am here. And I think that's the beauty of it. And I remember, you see, at this point when Peter was now not betraying, but rather denying Jesus, the whole story is, it's quite interesting, because Peter thinks that, I'm the one who is going strong for Jesus. Like, yo, Big J, I got you, and all that. And it's just like, bro, you will literally do this
before the cock crows.
Yes, because we like it when Jesus tells us something good about ourselves. But what if he tells us that there's going to be something bad? Something bad is going to happen. But then we see Jesus akimwambia, but I have prayed for you.
Yes.
So that when you overcome, you will help others. That was literally the whole story.
Imagine.
And I'm seeing that playing out in your life. I've seen that playing out also in my life, because I think how my passion for God grew is because of a very tough season that I went through.
Yeah.
So I really see that pattern going on. The pattern of God, it's not complicated. When there is pain, just no purpose is being birthed. And even grapes have to be crushed for them to produce wine.
Those are verses that I also struggle with. But to just add on that, 2 Corinthians 1, and God says, Praise be to the God of all comfort,
Yeah.
who comforts you in all your trials so that you can comfort others
Others.
in
Yeah.
every trial.
Yeah.
I also used to really struggle. There are verses I just have, you know,
Yes.
there are sometimes I get it. There's sometimes I'm like, yeah. But to comfort others, that has
Yeah.
always greatly moved me. That God has given me such comfort, such preservation, such knowledge, such wisdom, so that any other person who comes to me with any other trial, I am able to help them. So in that verse, there's usually a dichotomy in such that you are being comforted in any. When the people who come to you, you comfort them for every. I used to ask God, what is up with that?
Yeah.
He just is supposed to transmit that
Oh,
comfort that you
goodness.
have received
Yes.
for every trial that they will face.
Oh, wow.
I would feel that is what is enveloped in who I am. And because I keep saying this even for people who are just dilly-dallying and don't think that purpose is urgent, purpose is very urgent.
Very.
Because purpose has saved me literally and figuratively. Because the times I wanted to give up, I would sit down and wonder. And the people I'm supposed to impact, and then what happens to them? I couldn't. Everything in me wanted to give up.
Yeah.
But this thing about thinking about, I have lives that have been entrusted to me by God. I have not reached them, and it is my job to reach them. And then I just give up and decide, I'm not doing this thing. What happens then? And even the times when I would tell God to take me, and there was time he really was very, gentle, and he told me, you know why I can't take you? We haven't finished business here on us. I'm like, okay, I understand. So if you're not living in purpose, you are misaligned.
Yeah.
You're totally misaligned. So if you understand what your why is, God starts giving you platforms where you can express that purpose. So for me, it was writing books, it was coaching, it was inspirational speaking. I'm a minister of the gospel as well, minister of reconciliation. I mean, those things showed up, but they only showed up because I knew my why. That's how important it is.
It's so important. And it reminds me of this book by by Rick Warren, The Purpose Driven Life.
Yep.
The first statement, it's like, it's not about you. I read it and I was like, yo, okay, what a way to begin a book. It's not about you, boo. Like, yo.
No.
Because your purpose is not supposed to benefit. Even Jesus himself didn't come here for himself.
Yeah, true.
It was for everybody. So we ought to follow in that same line. Now, maybe let's talk about your second book. How did this come up? What's the inspiration behind it?
My second book was born out of the very painful journey. I wrote it after not being able to speak for 4 months, as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
So this nerve was inflamed, stroke irritated. So it affected my cheek, my jaw, my tongue, my throat. So you know how you would get a muscle cramp? So it was those cramps in my mouth.
Oof.
It was crazy. Sometimes I wonder, how did I get through that? It was crazy. I couldn't eat. I'm hungry. The food is there. But when I think about swallowing and thinking about how I'm going to cry, it reached a point where I was keeping saliva in my mouth until I just wait ikiwa imejaa, and then I hold a stress ball. Then as I am swallowing, I squeeze that stress ball with every of my energy. Because it was painful. I still had to take medication. So they used to be crushed, alafu naekwa maji kidogo, alafu nakunywa hiyo kitu. It was hard. I'm a very expressive person. I lost my ability to just air out, to express myself. So what I do is just text messages, and I stopped doing calls because I can't speak. Text messages, I used to write on my notebook, ikaja, nikadecide wacha niandike na kwa simu. I used to use symbols. I want that one. No. That one. That one. Yes. That's how I used to live. And after that, a friend of mine just asked me, have you started writing the book of the season?
What?
And then she went and I paid no attention to it. In my devotion, God is like, can you go back? Can you just like go back? What did your friend ask you? Book of the season. What about it? You're writing the book of the season. I had queued up another book to write because the way God has blessed me is He has shown me the books I need to write.
Yeah.
So inside, I know the books, I know the content. So He's like, no, you don't need to write that one. This is the book you're writing right now. And the conditions were for me to be raw and honest. He actually told me to transfer some of the conversations I have with Him to the book. That was hard because let me tell you, we got angry at God that year. Hey, 2021. Oh my gosh.
Tough year.
There was no hiding it. I
Yes.
couldn't hide it from God. I
Yeah.
decided to, yes, I fell apart. And I agreed to fall apart because most times I would be put together, perfect, ease of two, Zilisha, nothing, because I had no strength to keep up an appearance and deal with such pain.
Yeah.
So I had to give up one. So I removed my mask and put it down. So it's about the power of surrender, of vulnerability, of yieldedness to God. God taught me something called a blessed brokenness, where it is ordained by Him. And because it's ordained by Him, He sustains you in the brokenness. And then He puts you back together. You can't build on a faulty system.
Yeah.
I had to think about my identity because I had circled my identity around speaking, and now I couldn't speak. So who am I? So what He told me was, you need to build back again. You need to redefine who you are, not just by speaking.
Yeah.
And so He taught me about the blessed brokenness and the three things that are so important when it comes to allowing yourself to fall apart. It shows you where the cracks in your walls are.
Right.
It shows you the places where you've allowed external influences to define your identity. And then you have the chance to build back up on a stronger foundation. And that's what I did. And that's what my second book is about.
Beautiful. I mean, you're so full of wisdom, yo. That's so profound, so very profound, because most of the time we don't want to sit in that mess.
No.
We don't want to experience it. But you've given me such a beautiful perspective, and I'm almost thinking of the times when I have gone through a problem and I just want to pray it away. I want to run away from it. I want to distract myself. But it has just gotten me back to that same place again and again and again until I had to deal with it and say, this is where I am. If I have to cry, if I have to journal, I even went for therapy at some point. So I do understand what it means to sit in that, because that allows you to see the cracks. I mean, that's so beautiful. I see time is not on our side, but just maybe let our viewers know where can they get your books. And also with that, give us your closing remarks.
Okay. So if you want any of my books, you can WhatsApp me on 011 54 26 240. I have different outlets that have my books, so I need to know where someone lives and works. But you can just WhatsApp me and I will sort you. 011 56 54, 26 240.
Okay.
My parting shot would be, I know what it's like to be broken. I know what it's like to be hopeless. I know what it's like to be depressed. But I've also tasted the beauty of the love of God, of His grace, and of His power. And so I would encourage anyone who's listening to hold on just hold on to God. Be honest with Him. Be raw with Him. Let your conversations with Him not be those ones of pretending, but let Him know how you really are. And then seek support from your people, from God first. Seek counsel from God first. But above it all, remember that He has held you and no one can snatch you away from His hand. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful to remind us about God's love, even in the midst of all that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we can ask God, God, where are you? But you said something that I think I'll forever remember. If we switch off the lights at this point, it doesn't mean that you're still not here. You are still seated, and that's the same way God is. He's always present, even when you don't feel it, even when you can't perceive him from the right or the left. God is there, and he loves you passionately, sincerely. He's intensely in love with you. And that means that whatever you're going through, he's carrying you, and he's not going to give you something that he knows you're not going to get past, because he'll be there with you all the way to the end. This has been one day at a time, and I have been moved so much by the story that Favour has shared. And just to see how purpose can be birthed from pain. That is the one thing that I always need a constant reminder of, that the problems you're facing is not because God doesn't love you. It's not because he's away from you. If anything, he's closest to you when you're going through, a difficult season. And I would never want for you to get out of a difficult season and not realize that God was with you the whole time, because that's where you can truly find him. This has been Hope at Dawn, one day at a time, each and every Tuesday. This is how we do it. So you can also go on YouTube if maybe you missed this interview, and you can also share it with a friend who is going through a painful season and they need to be rejuvenated and be reminded that God is still on the throne and God wants to take them out, but he will not take them out until the lessons that they need to learn in that season have truly been birthed as they should be. So yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. I'll be with George Kishiru. So have yourself a very beautiful holiday. Today is actually a holiday. It doesn't feel like so for us here. But it is a beautiful holiday, and I would love for you to meditate on what we have talked about today. You can also get the books as well, and make sure that you're always in constant prayer, constant relationship with your Father in heaven, because he cares for you. So have yourself a good day. We'll see you tomorrow.